Hi, and welcome to the President's Forum podcast. I'm your host, Wesley Smith. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Marianne Boki, President of NC-SARA, the National Council for State Authorization Reciprocity Agreements. NC-SARA is critical in creating and preserving access to education for students throughout the country. It's a huge benefit to students, institutions, and states, all of which we will explore in our conversation today. Marianne, welcome to the President's Forum podcast. It is great to have you today.
Wes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really pleased to be here.
Hey, not all of our listeners are going to know what NC-SARA is. So just right at the top of this conversation, can you tell us about NC-SARA? Tell us a little bit about the organization, but importantly, tell us about the mission.
Absolutely. So NC-SARA is the National Council for State Authorization Reciprocity Agreements. It's where I work. It is a small, not-for-profit organization located in Boulder, Colorado. Really, our mission is to support SARA, which is the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement. And we really do that in collaboration with the 4 regional compacts. So WICHE in the West, SREB in the South, NEBI in New England, and MEC in the Midwest. And together we collaborate and help with the SARA initiative. So to help the states and institutions either be members or participants in the reciprocity agreement. So currently, right now, we have 49 states and the District of Columbia, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico that are members of SARA. And we have 2,400 institutions that participate in SARA. And the interesting thing I think to remember here is that SARA is the reciprocity agreement, whereas NC-SARA is the organization. And that's kind of the key difference.
Right. So you're focused on the agreement. You're focused on making sure that the agreement it continues to progress. There are things that change with all the states who have opted in.
Yep.
Our listeners are they're wondering right now. You have 49 states. Who's the holdout?
Right. The holdout is California, and that has been the holdout for a long time. However, we actually are making really great strides with California. We're in conversations with them right now. They have a bill in the works that's marching its way through the state legislature. We'll see if it makes it this year. But if it doesn't, I think it'll still be revised and go again next year. We're getting closer, I would say, with California. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer. One of the interesting things, though, to remember is that even if California signed the legislation, the governor signs it, and they're good to go, it actually would take a year or two before California actually meets the standards of SARA to join. And then it would probably be another year before institutions could really participate in SARA. There's just a lot of steps in the process to make sure that we're being equitable across all the states.
Well, that's a positive development. I mean, I think everybody would welcome California in with open arms. Yeah, we need to get them. Our listeners may be interested in the history of state reciprocity. What happened? Why did it start in the first place?
Right. Great question. So actually, it's been in the discussions and conversations for a long time back. We've only been operational for 11 years. So we're still relatively new, but actually conversations about reciprocity go back at least 15 years, if not further. So the idea was that states got together and said, how are we going to do the state authorization work across state lines? Because times are changing. Institutions are serving students across state lines, and we don't want to stymie that. We want to actually help that, perpetuate that, but in a way that protects students and really gives access to great programming. So what can we do? So they all got together and negotiated. It was really a negotiated compromise on how this is going to look and how this is going to work. So they did come up with what we call the SARA Policy Manual, and that's the guidebook, if you will, on how we go about having states join and how we have institutions participate. But the general idea was about using reciprocity to increase access for students across state lines. And that remains our mission today.
I love it. Okay. There are three groups that I want to ask you about. Why does it help students? Why does it help institutions? But before you get to those two,
Yeah.
tell me why states opted in.
Yeah.
Why does it help? How does it help states?
Yeah, that's great. It's a great question. And actually, I'm really glad you asked this because I think we talked about this a lot in the beginning years, 11, 12 years ago when we were setting up and we would go across the country and talk about this. But we've gotten away a little bit from that because now we talk more about the nuts and bolts. But really, the idea for states to join was to help them with their state authorization goals and needs. States realized that they had lots of institutions from out of state coming in and serving their students. And it is very difficult for a state to monitor and oversee all of those different institutions. So they thought there's got to be a better way. And so really at the heart of SARA is this idea of the home state. So the home state oversees their institutions. They know them best. They're their boots on the ground. They can do that. And then they trust that the other states are doing the same. And we have found that to be very, very helpful.
So SARA helps like consumer protection.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And the states, one of the things that gets overlooked all the time, I think, on this is states opt in. It's an opt in. It's not like this is a federal movement or something. They've all looked at this and they've all said, this serves the interests of our students.
Absolutely. Not only serves our interests of our students, but it also helps them with their state authorization goals as well to make sure that the institutions coming in meet standards that they have agreed to. Because without it, it's very, very difficult. So back in the day, it used to be that lots of institutions that just beamed content in across state lines could do so without any regulation at all. And that's actually still the case in quite a few states today. But with SARA, it changes the game. So now institutions have to follow a set of standards and rules and regulations in order to be participating in SARA and serve these students. So states take comfort in knowing that there are certain consumer protections that are laid out for their students. And just to give you a quick data point, it might be that a state might have, 60 or 70 institutions that they oversee in their home state, but you could have up to 800 or 900 out-of-state institutions serving in students in your state. That is very difficult to keep, your hands around.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you put numbers to that, it really makes sense why you'd have some sort of a format to follow, some sort of a regulatory system to help, so you don't have to figure out. I mean, that just gets unwieldy if you're trying to manage 800 to 900 different institutions. It's hard to do. Yep. Okay, so we've talked states. How does it help students?
So for students, the real advantage, honestly, is that they can get the education they need when they need it, where they need it. And they can move, they can do different things, and they don't get disrupted. I mean, one of the things that all of us say in the SARA community is that students probably don't know the name SARA necessarily, and that's a good thing. That means that they're getting their education, they're moving on with their lives, they're doing what they need to do, and everything is running smoothly behind the scenes.
Got it. And it makes sense. And so it gives students a huge array of options when it comes to their education.
Yep.
It introduces this element of, you can find where you want your education from, how you want to consume it. There are lots of things that it does for students in opening up options.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it protects students as well. So there's a layer of protections there that aren't there without SARA. Okay. So it also does that, but again, behind the scenes.
Yeah, I don't want to overlook that portion. And I think that's where the state's interests and the students' interests they overlap as well.
Absolutely.
The consumer protection.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now get us a 101 on how it helps institutions. What's the institution upside?
Right. So there's a couple of reasons why institutions want to participate in SARA. The first and foremost is it does streamline the regulations around state authorization for institutions. So without SARA, if you're serving students in another state, you would need to go to that state and see what you need to do and then do it in order to be in compliance with those rules and regulations. It's a lot of work. It can be a lot of money, and it's unwieldy. Whereas now an institution can, if they are approved to be in SARA, then they can serve students and use those resources in different ways. I mean, anecdotally, we do hear from institutions that say, yes, it saves us time. Yes, it saves us money. But really what we do is we put those resources back into the institution for students, for things that we need to do in other compliance areas. And we think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I would say just, for the record, I would say most of the President's Forum institutions are in that camp. They would say, hey, it saves us dollars, it saves us resources. But we put that back into the student.
Absolutely. Because there's lots of compliance that institutions have to do nowadays. Lots. And so there's always more work to do. And so they do that. But the other piece I would say that we've heard from institutions that help students is that it helps them when they move. So, not all students start out distance learning, but quite a few might take that path if it's available to them and it doesn't then disrupt their educational journey. And that's a big deal for higher education community. That's why we're all here. So I would say that that's another big plus, is that it helps students succeed.
We have a lot of institutions that serve members of the military, and you can imagine how frequently they move, and it's really helpful for especially that population.
It really is. It's very helpful. And we just have a mobile student body now, quite frankly. People move around. So this is something that I think students, institutions, states all get some help, if you will, with their state authorization needs through SARA. And why I think it has been so successful, why 49 states and the territories and the district, and why 2,400 institutions, is because it's state-led. States are the ones who put this reciprocity agreement together. States are the ones that really oversee the regulations and rules that institutions and states have to follow in order to participate. And I think that's important.
You know what I found, and I'm interested to compare notes with you. I found that a lot of our state officials today, members of the state legislature, they weren't serving when their states opted in.
That's true.
And so one of the things that we need to do, together, is we need to help educate new state legislators, new governors, new advisors to governors in education about SARA and about what NC-SARA is doing now to help that movement and how they can plug in. Because what I found is a lot of policymakers today, because SARA does behind the scenes work and just enables things to happen, they've never had to dig in and understand how important it is. But we have to, it's our role to help educate and to make sure people understand this is why things move so smoothly when it comes to national education.
I couldn't agree more. And in fact, our board couldn't agree more, because one of the things they've really asked the staff at NC-SARA and the regional compact folks is to almost go back to basics and talk about the value of SARA for students, for institutions and states when we go and talk to, as you said, governors, staff, legislators, but even at conferences. So many institutions have had turnover as well that I think sometimes the value gets lost a little bit. There's just this little piece that's happening right now, actually, is that what some people don't realize is that SARA helps, of course, with distance learning. That's the big push, but also with out-of-state learning placements. So clinicals, teaching internships and whatnot. And this is really important. And so what we're finding is that we need to re-educate some of our institutions with the idea that even if you're not a big online provider, my guess is you still have students doing internships across the country or doing clinicals. And if so, we can help you with that. So it's one of the things that we need to, I think, speak more about.
Well, we know that the forum is going to work with NC-SARA on that.
Yes.
A couple other issues the forum could work with NC-SARA on. Just access generally, it's always important to us. But we are also always pushing for learning models to be regulated with parity, different learning models.
Yep.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that actually, because I think that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. And the reality is when COVID hit and everyone had to go to remote learning, which is different than distance learning, but they went to remote learning. And then we went back, if you will. What we found historically over the last 5 years is that the face-to-face learning has stabilized, but the online learning continues to go up. There is an appetite for online learning. There is an appetite for hybrid. There is an appetite for students to be able to move around and get the education they need and not disrupt their educational journey so that they can get to where they need to be. And I think President's Forum is at the forefront of that. You are helping keep that in the limelight, if you will, about the fact that distance learning is here. It is just a modality of learning, one of many, and one that, quite frankly, is very helpful to the changing demographics that we're seeing in our country. We have less 18-year-olds graduating high school. We have more students who want to do part-time. And we also have, and I know I'm preaching the choir here, but we also have, upwards of 40 million Americans that have some credit but no college degree.
Right.
This is where this access comes into play. We can help people, like I said, complete their educational journey.
Right. Okay. I know your time's valuable, so you've got other things to do today. Let me give you one final question. I just want you to look toward the future. What are the emerging trends in distance education that you think our institutions should be paying close attention to?
Right. That's a really good question. And I would say there's a few that just pop into my head right away. One is, of course, AI. That is big news. I would say the big takeaway there is that it's coming faster than any of us thought. So we all need to have discussions and talking and thinking about how we can use this in the most productive way. How can we leverage AI and other technology to serve students well? So I think that's a big one. But there's a few others. I think there's also this idea of using data. That is very important. It's evidence-based, data-based to make policy decisions at the institutional level, super important. Finally, I would say that institutions have a lot of moving parts right now. The regulatory landscape is really hard to navigate. I'm just going to say it's really hard to navigate. There is a lot that institutions have to do to stay in compliance with states, with the feds, with accreditors and others. And all of that is changing. So I think we all need to work together to share information, to talk to each other, think about best practices, because we're all trying to do the same thing, and that is serve students well. And I know that's what we all want to do. So together we can do it better.
Marianne, thank you for joining us today. You're a really great interview. To our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about NC-SARA, visit nc-sara.org. That's nc-sara.org. You can explore more videos like this on the forum's website at presidentsforum.org. Thanks for joining us today.